Have you ever tried eating a donut without licking your lips? Apparently it's pretty much impossible because sugar absorbs the natural moisture in our lips, and this means our natural instinct is to immediately lick them. But maybe you need to buy yourself a donut just to make sure. Our physical body needs to be hydrated, with 60% of the average human body being made up of water. If you've ever been for a long run, to the beach on a warm summer's day, or eaten salt-laden chips, you will know the longing for a glass of water to satisfy that thirst. All living things need water to survive, and thirst is a part of what it is to be alive. As we think on what it is to be alive, let's draw our minds to the cross on which Jesus breathed his last breath. The penultimate words Jesus spoke were words expressing his humanity. I am thirsty. We cannot imagine the physical agony of Jesus as his wounded, lashed, pain-racked body hung heavily on the cross. But it is his parched lips, his gritty mouth, his dry throat, which Jesus cried out about. In his craving for rehydration, there is a jar full, a sponge full of wine vinegar. That is wine gone bad. The sharp scent and bracing taste must have stung Jesus. But the moisture offered just a moment of relief, bitter though it may have been. This fulfills words of Psalm 69. I am worn out calling for help. My throat is parched. My eyes fail looking for my God. I looked for sympathy, but there was none. For comforters, but I found none. They put gall in my food and gave me vinegar for my thirst. In Jesus' declaration of thirst, we see the fullness of his human nature. This is the one who throughout his ministry performed miracles to feed the hungry, heal the sick and raise the dead. Yet on the cross he himself thirsted and suffered the torment of physical and emotional pain. We see in Jesus a God who knows the extent of the brokenness of earth. We see a God who, in the words of former Salvation Army General John Gowans, is not a distant God, remote, unfeeling, who is careless of loneliness and pain. On the cross, we see a God who immersed himself in the anger, injustice and suffering of the world. In 1990, Bette Midler had a big hit with the song From a Distance. There are many beautiful ideas in this song, but in my mind the lyrics, God is watching us from a distance, reinforce perhaps an unhelpful image of a God who looks down at us from a cloud in the sky. But that is not the God I know, and that is not the God we see when we look upon a baby lying in a manger. That is not the God we see when we look upon Jesus laughing and eating and sharing with people whom others had excluded. That is not the God we see when we look upon the cross and hear Jesus cry, I am thirsty. That is not the God we see when we look upon the risen Jesus showing his scars to Thomas, who is struggling to believe. The God I know is one who left the splendour, majesty and perfection of heaven to jump right into the mess, the trauma and the suffering of life on earth. In the person of Jesus Christ, we see the divine and human natures united, so that he is 100% God and 100% man, baffling mathematicians everywhere. As Jesus, who turned water into wine, hangs on the cross out of love for humanity, he knows the extent of human pain that can befall us, his children on earth. And because of that, whatever struggles and heartache and desperation we face, our God is right there with us. In the words of author Anne Voskamp, instead of explaining our suffering, God shares it, because he knows mere answers are cold and his arms are warm. On the cross, Jesus seemingly simply announces that his body is suffering from dehydration. But does Jesus thirst for something more? Perhaps he thirsts for an end to his suffering. He knows that all is finished and he yearns, he thirsts for relief. He wants the pain to end. The vinegar wine brings but a temporary relief, really no help at all. But in his thirst for relief, he reminds us of the countless hungers and thirsts that surround us. As we reflect on Jesus' words, we acknowledge that deep desire and longing that Christ has for all of humanity to be saved and free through his sacrificial love. Jesus' declaration of thirst was the inspiration for much of Mother Teresa's ministry. In her letter to her spiritual family, she wrote this: "He thirsts for you. He loves you always, even when you don't feel worthy. When not accepted by others, even by yourself sometimes, he is the one who always accepts you." Jesus longs for us to be filled with his love, for us to know him and to let ourselves be known by him. The sheer audacity of obediently giving up your life on a cross as an innocent man can only find meaning in Jesus' deep yearning for something so significant. That yearning for a reconciled relationship between heaven and earth. In 1950, Mother Teresa established the Missionaries of Charity, and in each of their chapels around the world, the words "I thirst" are prominently displayed on the wall. Mother Teresa explained, "We have these words in every chapel to remind us why we are here. To quench the thirst of Jesus for souls, for love, for kindness, for compassion, for delicate love." On the cross, Jesus' physical thirst was barely quenched with bad wine. But we can help to quench Jesus' spiritual thirst for humanity to know God's love. Through our words and actions, we can express the thirst of Jesus on the cross for people to enter into a relationship with God. We can speak words of truth and hope to our friends and family so that they can know something of God's love. Our actions of compassion and kindness can stir something within people's hearts which cause them to thirst for something more. When we choose to follow Jesus, we too must thirst for people to receive his love, to experience his forgiveness, and to know the hope that comes from him. For many years, the soft drink Sprite had the slogan, "Obey your thirst." Jesus obeyed his thirst to save the world by faithfully giving up his life on the cross. What do you need to do to obey your God-given thirst for the world to know his love? As we consider the suffering of Jesus, which we could not physically ease in the moment, may God cause us to thirst for the easing of humanity's suffering today. And may he inspire, guide and strengthen us as we seek to quench that thirst. As we thirst for both ourselves and our world to know the depths of God's love, may we find assurance in the words of Matthew 5, verse 6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. God bless you.